price checking, dude. So whose salary do you like at the following positions in week 4? Quarterback, Steven, talk to me.
Oh, give me Aaron Rodgers at 6,800 going against the Steelers this week. Those Pittsburgh Steelers corners are struggling, and that's probably putting it nicely because this is a family-friendly show. Cameron Sutton, 84.6% reception rate on 13 targets for 96 yards allowed. James Pierre, 72.7% reception rate on 11 targets for 114 yards. What game are you playing? Look, the Steelers are getting good pressure on the quarterback, but Aaron Rodgers has been protected through the first 3 weeks of the season, only under pressure on 27.1% of his dropbacks. He always has that strong front in front of him. I think he just picks apart the Steelers in this week 4 matchup, so getting him at only 6,800 feels like a really good steal, so I love him this week at quarterback.
All right, Pierce, how about you? Who do you love this week at quarterback?
Russell Wilson. And I'm with Steve. On the slate, a lot of the quarterbacks look like they're in some pretty tough matchups, but if you look closely at these cornerbacks, you can see some matchups to attack. San Francisco could be without basically all their starting quarterbacks. They lost Jason Verrett. Norman may not be back. K'Wan Williams may not be back. And then last week, the 49ers gave up 132 yards to Devontae Adams. I like Russell Wilson. He's been throwing the ball really well to start the season. And, just throw a little value play out there. Consider D. Eskridge if he gets the okay later in this week to help you pay for some of these guys.
Maddie, who's your dude?
I think it's Dak Prescott, and I think he's too cheap at 6,700, and I also don't know if this is a game that much of the field really wants to stack because we have some super appealing games this week, most notably Arizona and LA, and I think Stafford and Kyler Murray are probably the go-to targets. But I think with McCaffrey probably out and just the way that the Cowboys played last night where they relied on the running game because they had a big lead, we see this maybe as a team that gets overlooked because their recent performance isn't so good. And the matchup on the surface might seem like a hard one. Carolina has had probably the best defense in the NFL this season, but that's only if you don't account for their opponents. I mean, they've played the Jets and they've played Davis Mills and the Texans, and their best opponent was Jameis Winston and the Saints, who is probably average at best. I'm a Jameis fan, but he's not that great. So this has been a really easy schedule for Carolina. So I think this could be a closer game. Dallas's defense isn't very good. Could be a shootout here, and I like Dak, and I like some of the Dallas passing options too.
Okay, well, Pierce, let's go to running back. Whose price sticks out to you?
I like Derrick Henry. I know he's very expensive, but the Jets are pretty terrible. But also terrible is the Titans' defense. They really couldn't put away Carson Wentz on 2 bum ankles. So there's a good chance that the Jets kind of keep this game close or respectable, and you see Derrick Henry play 4 quarters. That's what we really need. And you look at last season, the Titans didn't blow out a lot of teams. They were not able to separate, which means Derrick Henry is going to play a lot of the game. And so you take a lot of plays against one of the worst run DVOAs in football, and I don't mind paying this high price.
All right, Matt.
So he's not the best value, but I think Miles Sanders at 6,400 is someone who I'm going to like a lot. The Chiefs' defense has just been awful, and Miles Sanders didn't do much against Dallas. Jalen Hurts struggled, had a bunch of turnovers. I think next week there's a good enough chance that the Eagles try to keep the ball on the ground more, just to go back to more of a simple approach because they just played so poorly on offense for most of the Monday night game. But Sanders has a really good matchup, and I think the recent performance kind of keeps people away from him. There are a ton of running backs to like in the mid-tier, and it's just I think Sanders will be more contrarian than a lot of them. But I don't think you can go really all that wrong with a lot of these 6K running backs. Sanders, though, I just think is kind of the low-owned option of that group.
All right, Steven, what about you, dude?
Yeah, someone just above that 6K range is Nick Shub at 7,000 against the Vikings, coming off a really poor game against the Bears. That probably should have been expected, but his salary dropped $600 in the process. This Vikings defense is allowing an average of 139 scrimmage yards per game to opposing running backs. Chubb, even though he's in that split with Kareem Hunt, is still averaging over 15 carries per game. Didn't receive a target last week, but that was an anomaly. He should still be involved in the passing game too as well. With that drop in salary to 7K, I like Chubb going against the Vikings defense, and that's going to be a close game too. So the running game should be involved all throughout the game. So I really like Chubb this week.
Matt, take us to wide receiver. Price check for us there, please.
So I mentioned Dak, and that means I obviously like CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. I think Lamb's price at 6,700 is pretty much fair. I just like him as a part of that stack. Cooper's a little cheap at 6K, but the guy who stands out to me as by far the best value amongst receivers this week is Robert Woods. Cooper Kupp's price keeps going up. Robert Woods is falling. He's at 5,300 now, and I don't know if he's a chalk play because of it. I kind of feel like he might be. But I also think that defenses might start paying more attention to Cooper Kupp because he's clearly been the Rams' best receiver this year. Robert Woods is tremendously talented also. 5,300 is just far too cheap for him against anybody, and Arizona is actually a really good matchup. So Woods at 5,300, I think that's just a dramatic underprice for him.
Steve, talk to me.
DJ Moore at 6,600 going against the Cowboys. Once I saw that price, I'm like, I haven't even made my lineup yet. He's already in all of them. That's where I am already. But granted, he got a $700 bump from last week, but he's averaging 10.3 targets through the first 3 weeks of the season. Love his matchup this week against cornerback Anthony Brown, who's been targeted against already 24 times and has allowed 18 receptions for an average of 13.5 yards per reception and 2 touchdowns. Sam Darnold loves throwing the ball to DJ Moore. He's going to do that plenty in this game against the Cowboys. Give me Moore at an underpriced 6,600 for the production he's put up so far.
Yeah, damn, you're not wrong on that. 8 targets week 1, 11 targets, then 12 targets. Pearce, who is your guy at wide receiver?
Colin Johnson at 3,200. You're going to have to scroll down to find this guy. Darius Slayton, probably going to be out for a couple weeks. Sterling Shepard going to be out for a couple weeks. Last week we saw him play half the snaps, got 7 targets, 5 catches for 50 yards. A tough matchup against New Orleans, but if they fall behind, that means they're going to pass more, and it's going to be more volume. Also, if they keep this game close, it's probably because Jones and Johnson are playing well. Last week he had an 83.2 PFF grade in the action they received. Last year against with Jacksonville, he played over half the snaps just twice, but in those 2 appearances, he averaged 8 catches for 70 yards. So I'll take 15 points from a $3,200 receiver.
All right, top heavy position here with tight end. Steve, talk to me.
You know, people are going to be paying up at tight end. I'm going to go all the way down 4,300 to Noah Fant going against the Ravens. They've already been destroyed by 2 of the top tight ends in the league, Travis Kelce and Darren Waller. That's why they're allowing an average of 96 yards per game. Fant doesn't get that type of volume, but he's still second on the team in targets behind Cortland Sutton with 17. So you're telling me that the guy who's second on the team in targets is only 4,300 against a team who's already been wrecked by this position twice already this season? Give me the Noah Fant at 4,300. No brainer. Pay down to this position so you can get up at some of those other top guys at running back and wide receiver.
Pearce, you got a no brainer at tight end?
Yeah, I'll pay down as well. Mike Gesicki, $4,000. 8 targets against Buffalo by Brissett. The next week he got 12 targets from Brissett. Seems like Brissett likes to target his tight ends a lot. Well, I looked it up. In 2017, he targeted Jack Doyle 107 times, 1 fewer than T.Y. Hilton. And then again in 2019, when Jacoby Brissett was playing full-time, the combo of Ebron and Doyle got 124 targets. All Brissett does is throw to his tight end. You're going to get double-digit targets in this game. Maybe you can get the 100-yard mark as well. Almost got there last week.
Matt, tight end.
So I partially agree with Steve that people are going to pay up for tight end. I think Travis Kelce for sure stands out as an option people are going to want to spend their salary on. But I think after Kelce, people will pay down for the next tier tight ends like Noah Fant, and then probably more popular option, Tyler Higbee, who had a touchdown last week, part of that Rams stack that I think could be the top one that people go to. So I think somewhere in that mid-tier is where tight ends get overlooked. And TJ Hawkinson is coming off a really weak game against the Ravens, where I think that they just made him the focal point of the Lions offense, and they just kind of took him out of the game. I don't think the Bears can do that. And I just think Hawkinson is a good enough player, and the Lions have just so little else to throw to that he should do fine. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with him because he didn't do well against Baltimore. I think these things just happen. Darren Waller had a dud a couple weeks ago. Travis Kelce, I guess, doesn't have those. But aside from him, like, the tight ends just have bad games once in a while. Everyone has a bad game once in a while. I think Hawkinson is a little underpriced at 5,800 and probably makes for a contrarian option just because of the bad results from last week.
Underpriced at 5,800 and still the 3rd highest priced tight end on the main slate. Before you dudes take off, someone remind me, please, what year it is. because wide receiver Josh Gordon has been reinstated by the NFL again and is signing with another team with a great quarterback again, this time the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. Whenever someone who once led the NFL in receiving yards, guys, is on the waiver wire, fantasy football managers are sure to pay attention. What are your fantasy expectations for Josh Gordon in this Kansas City offense, Steve?
I think it's going to be slow to get going, but I mean, if he can actually, stay on course and be that guy, I mean, he's a great threat. I mean, the problem is that he's always had these issues of staying on track. But like when he was with the Patriots, he had a couple of good games there, and now obviously playing with Patrick Mahomes, I think they're still kind of try to find that void of what Sammy Watkins left. Still looking for that kind of solidified guy to be like a wide receiver 2/3. So if he can fill that role, the talent is there. There's no doubt about that. It's just as if he can stay on the field.
Pierce, is he worth a fantasy flyer?
He's worth the fantasy flyer, but it's not 2013, and my expectations are pretty low. I'm rooting for the guy. I'm hoping that everything works out. I hate to see what's already happened continue to happen. But, he doesn't have to carry this offense. Like Steve mentioned, he just needs to hit the Sammy Watkins boomer bust play every once in a while, and that'll keep him on the team. I don't think you roster him, though, in DFS.
Matt, fantasy owners keep throwing a dart his way every time he resurfaces. Why is that?
Yeah, I guess it's what Pierce said, that he had that one great season, but it's 2013. Like, I just looked that up myself, and it doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it's 8 years now since he had that elite receiving season. It's been quite some time. So, I don't think we can just assume that the talent level is still there. I think Josh Gordon probably is still really talented, but just not at the same place that he was. I mean, it's almost a decade ago now. So I think that he could put up some numbers just because Patrick Mahomes is great, and the Chiefs don't have Sammy Watkins this year. They do have a problem with receiver depth. I'm not sure how good Mecole Hardman is. Gordon himself may not be that great, but because he's in a system where there's just a lot to go around, maybe he becomes fantasy relevant. But the last time he played, 2019, he played 11 games and only had 27 receptions with both the Patriots and Seahawks that year. It's been a while since he was good. So Mahomes could make him relevant, but I think that's all it would be.
I mean, it's a guy who gets suspended, then he gets to play with Russell Wilson. Suspended, plays with Tom Brady. Suspended, now he's going to be playing with Patrick Mahomes. How does that work out?